Hello and welcome to the Sound Test Room. My name is Jakob. I'm your host and you're watching a hack vlog. In this vlog, I'm gonna be going through the answers I got from Erik Magrini, aka Tarakith, the mastering engineer I was talking about in the vlog yesterday. I got some really nice feedback. It's well worth $30 I spent on this. So let's go through what Erik says. Took a listen to your song and here's a few things about the mixdown that you might consider adjusting. The low end on the kick is a little restrained and getting buried under the bass line. A gentle 1 to 2 decibel boost around 80 Hz would help here, I think. I know Erik. I actually on purpose lowered all of the bass low ends on my bass drum because from experience I've learned that if I keep too much of those frequencies, they try to fight with the frequencies of the actual bass line. But in this case, Erik is right because I overdid it. So I'm losing a lot of punch in my kick. There's no bottom end to lift up that punch from the kick. So he's right in this. I should really correct that. He also says that the hi-hat sound is a bit too loud in the mix. Try lowering that 2 decibels. It's also panned pretty far to the right channel with nothing to balance it on the left side. That is right too. I do think that the drums sounds a bit harsh when it comes to hi-hat sounds and snare, and I do think that the hi-hat is mixed too far to the right. I need to fix that in some way. Further down here, snare clap sound is a touch too loud too. Try lowering that to 1 to 2 decibels. So my biggest issue here are the drums, and that is a big issue for me because that drum thing is a loop. It's not a multi-track. I wish so much I had exported multi-tracks of it, but this is a thing of iOS because when I started making that track, I started making it on the iPad mini 1 and it is a bit limited in the hardware resources. So I have to limit the amount of tracks that I use when multi-tracking stuff. Otherwise, you'll start getting clicks and pops, buffering spikes. So it's due to the hardware that I made a loop instead. And I exported that loop from Oxy, the original first version of Oxy. And I can't even redo those drums because the developers of Oxy, straight after they released that, they made an update to Oxy and they changed the drum sounds. So I can't even redo the drums. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that loop completely. I'm going to redo that loop using another one of my most favorite app, Gadget. And when I'm exporting stuff, I will be exporting them in multi-tracks. So I will be exporting the bass drum as itself, the hi-hat, the snare, all of it, all the parts by themselves, so I can mix them later on and try to reproduce the drum loop I already have in my track. I'm gonna need another counseling session by Erik, but that's not a problem. I actually like doing this. This whole thing has made me like my song more because now I know what to look for and now I know where to go to make it sound as good as possible. So the next thing that Erik talks about is at 149 you start a heavily reverbed chord sound. I think it's nice sounding, just that there's a little bit too much lower mids in the reverb, making things sound a touch muddy. I actually know what Erik talks about, but I couldn't really fathom what to do. I just tried cutting away at the really low ends up to 100 Hz and it didn't make any difference. It was just muddy, but Erik's ears could just pick up on it. So he says 400 to 600 Hz. Erik wants me to do some EQ reduction around 400 to 600 Hz on the reverb send. The thing is, I'm not using a reverb send. That reverb is actually baked into the loop with that chord sound. That chord sound comes from synthesizer. So I'm gonna have to try to equalize that sound and the reverb on it. That's gonna be interesting because I'm gonna be cutting away stuff in both the reverb and the sound because it's all baked in. And if I can't do that, I'll redo that whole thing using synthesizer again. But that's a good thing. I want to remove any muddiness that comes into my track. Overall, not a lot of changes, he says, but I think lowering the snare and the hi-hat will make the most difference as this song comes across a touch too bright right now. Turning those down just a tiny bit will give the low end more space to come through and add a lot more weight to the song overall. Thank you so much for that, Erik. I agree with you. I'm not a mastering engineer. After all of these years mixing stuff and doing stuff myself, I've learned some things, and everything that Erik says, I wouldn't be able to discover it myself. I know what he talks about and I can now recognize it now that I have this bit of info here. And with these instructions, it's now easier for me to pinpoint where I need to focus my listening energy and mixing. Because if I want to master this. If let's say I would hire Erik to master this, I wouldn't want to send him a mixdown that isn't sounding as good as I can possibly make it. A lot of people have been asking me about mastering and stuff, and seriously, I don't know much. I know some, but I don't know as much, especially not as much as Erik, who's working professionally with this. So if I'm gonna hire someone to master my stuff, then my mixdown has to sound as good as possible. It has to. And that's why I need Erik's help. So it was worth $30, definitely. And I'm gonna have to redo the drums and then hire Erik for another counseling session. Feels worth doing it. That's pretty much it. Stay tuned for any more updates on this. As usual, Doug Woods, Colin Sweeney, and me, Jakob at thesoundtestroom.com, wishes you a very productive week. Now go finger your surfaces and have a lot of fun doing it.